In this video we'll show you how to use the wall's top menu items to control application functionality. Here is a list of the topics covered and the time each topic appears in the video. Feel free to navigate the video to whichever section you wish to learn about. Before we start with the file system menus, let's open the application first. To launch the software, find the application folder. Then, for Windows, double-click on the .exe executable file. For Mac, Control-click on the application file icon, then select Open from the context menu. You may be presented with a network security alert screen. You can dismiss this screen. We will not be using the UDP networking functionality in this tutorial. The software will load and you'll be presented with the main screen. Let's start with the File System menu in the upper left corner. The file menus for Windows and Macintosh versions are labeled slightly differently, but they operate identically. We'll be using the Windows version in this tutorial. A wall project is made up of 5 files that are stored together in a folder that is named the same as the project. That is, if your project is named Wall Demo PC4623, all 5 of its files will be located in a folder named Wall Demo PC4623. To open an existing project, navigate to the Application File menu at the upper left of your screen, and select the Open Project menu item. On Mac, the menu item will just be labeled Open. In the Open File dialog window, navigate to the folder that contains the project you want to open. Remember, the folder's name is the same as the name of the project. Inside the folder you will see a file with the project name and the extension .json. Double-clicking on this file will load all of the project files into the application. The following files will be loaded: the preset file, the mappings file, the client file, the pitch quantize scales file, and the songs file. We'll discuss each of these files later in the tutorial. When the project file is loaded, you'll see the project name above the preset matrix. You'll see that the preset matrix and the preset selection menu have been populated. You'll see that pitch map scale tables have been loaded, and that there are song items in the song select menu. You can view the client preferences file by selecting Set Wall Client Prefs from the File menu. Finally, you can see that mapping file has been loaded by selecting View Mappings from the Mappings menu. Let's take a closer look at each of the items in the File menu. Selecting New Project, Save As, prompts you to choose a name and a location for your project. A new project folder will be created at the location you select. The folder name will become the project name. The 5 files we previously described will be created in that new folder. We've already seen what the Open Project menu item does. It prompts you to select an existing project folder and open the project.json file. If you have opened an existing project, selecting the Save Project item will save any changes you have made to the currently loaded project without prompting. If you have not opened an existing project, selecting Save Project will have no effect. If you have opened an existing project, selecting the Save Project as item prompts you to choose a new name and a location for your current project. A new project folder will be created at the location you select. The folder name will become the new project name. The 5 files we previously described will be created in that new folder. If you haven't yet opened an existing project, selecting the Save Project as item behaves the same as selecting the new project save as item. Selecting the Close or Exit menu items will close all application windows and exit the application. Selecting the Set Wall Client Prefs item opens a window where you can tell the application how to save and recall application parameter values. The value of each parameter in the application is stored in a named client object. These values can either be stored and recalled with a preset, or they can be ignored by preset changes. Being able to set how you want to recall these values provides powerful and flexible functionality. For example, you might want the application change the tempo every time a preset is recalled. Or, you might want to control and maintain the tempo independently from the selected preset. To store and recall a parameter value with a preset, check the box in the name column. When it is checked, the stored value will be recalled whenever the preset is selected. Leaving the box unchecked causes the application to ignore the stored value when the preset is selected. This way, you can keep parameter values consistent across preset changes. This preference is stored at the project level. That is, whatever preference you select for a client object is valid across all presets in the current project. To give you even more flexibility, the application allows you to create, save, import, and export multiple client preferences files. For example, you can import client preferences from a different project into the current project. Or, you can export the current client preferences file for use with other projects. To import a client preferences file into the current project, just select the Import Wall Client File item and navigate to the saved file you want to import. The client file will be named by the project name followed by an underscore, then the word clients, followed by the extension .txt. The imported file will overwrite the current file and will be stored with the project when you next save it. Selecting the Export Client File item allows you to save the current state of client preferences to a new file that you can later use in other projects. The application also allows you to create, save, import, and export multiple preset files. The preset file contains the saved values for all parameters in all currently stored presets. By default, the current presets are written to the preset file when you save the project. You can also import preset data from a different project into the current project. Or, you can export the current values for all presets for use with other projects. To import a preset file into the current project, just select the Import Preset File item and navigate to the saved file you want to import. The imported file will overwrite the current file and will be stored with the project when you next save it. Selecting the Export Preset File JSON item allows you to save all of the current presets to a new JSON file that you can later recall for use in other projects. Selecting the Export Preset File XML item allows you to save all of the presets to a new XML file that you can later recall for use in other projects. Next, let's take a look at the Edit menu. In addition to the normal undo, redo, cut, copy, paste, and delete items, the Edit and Settings menu contains 5 additional items. Selecting the MIDI Setup item opens a window where you can manage your MIDI preferences. Use the checkbox in the On column to make devices available for use in the application. Use the checkbox in the Map column to activate an input for use with MIDI mapping control. A device must be checked to use it with MIDI mapping. If it is unchecked, its data will be ignored by the map functionality. Selecting the Audio Status item opens a window where you can select your audio source and manage its audio inputs and outputs for use in the application. When overdrive is enabled, the application gives priority to timing and MIDI processing over screen drawing and user interface tasks such as responding to mouse clicks. For all PDI applications, overdrive should be enabled. Selecting Stop Scheduler temporarily pauses the clock, which triggers application events. This can be useful if too much data is being generated by the application too quickly. Selecting Resume restarts the previously paused clock. The application will resume triggering events and producing data. Many application parameters can be controlled from external MIDI sources or from your computer keyboard. This functionality is accessed and controlled from the Mappings menu. You can map your computer keyboard to various application parameters by selecting the Key Mapping Mode item from the Mappings menu. Selecting this item displays the key mapping screen. Parameters that can be mapped are shown in solid color, while parameters that are not available are shown with a dotted line border. To select a parameter for mapping, click on the client object. The border of the object will become highlighted. Next, select the key on your computer keyboard that you want to use as the controller. You can do this for as many client objects as you like. You can also assign the same computer key to multiple client objects. To remove a mapping, right-click on the mapped client object and select Delete Mapping from the context menu. Do not select Disable Mapping from this context menu. When you are finished, hit the Escape key on your computer keyboard. The application will exit mapping mode, and you will see the main application screen. Your selected mapping should now be in effect. To control application parameters from an external MIDI device, select MIDI Mapping Mode from the Mappings menu. To map a client object parameter to a MIDI note or control, click on the client object parameter you want to map. The object border will become highlighted. Next, tap the MIDI note key, or wiggle the knob or fader you want to use as the controller. The client object parameter value will now change as you move the MIDI controller or press the note key. You can map a MIDI controller to more than one parameter. To remove a mapping, right-click on the mapped client object and select Delete Mapping from the context menu. Do not select Disable Mapping from this context menu. When you are finished, hit the Escape key on your computer keyboard. The application will exit mapping mode, and you will see the main application screen. Your selected mapping should now be in effect. All MIDI control mappings are channel dependent. The MIDI channel you are transmitting on is saved with the mapping. You must transmit on the saved channel for the MIDI mapping to work. You may only use a MIDI note or controller on one channel at a time. You cannot assign the same note or controller to different parameters on different channels. You can define and manage your mappings by selecting the View Mappings item from the Mappings menu. To manage a mapping entry you can select a mapping by clicking on a row. Use the -sign Remove Mapping button to delete the selected mapping. Each row provides options for mapping details. The options include: enable and disable the mapping by toggling the On checkbox. View or edit the MIDI or key event that triggers a parameter change. View the type of object that is being controlled. View and set the minimum and maximum values for the controlled parameter. Set the exponent curve of value changes. View and set the number of value change steps. Relative mode allows endless controllers to adjust the value. Trigger mode sets the way that the object responds to trigger-like events. The options are: toggle. The value toggles between minimum and maximum. Momentary switch. The value stays at maximum until the event is completed. Cycle. The value toggles between several options. Retrigger. The object is treated as if it had received a bang message. Pickup mode determines how a value will treat the current setting. The options are: off. The received value is treated like an absolute value. Pickup. The object value won't change until the received value crosses the current value. Scale. The value scales until it reaches the minimum or maximum value, then is treated like an absolute value. The exponent, steps and relative mode settings are not available for keyboard mappings. The wall clock menu has 3 items that control how the application gets its timing information. Selecting the internal clock item sets the audio device you selected in the audio status preferences as the timing source. Selecting internal MIDI clock sets the MIDI port that you specify in the clock section of the application as the source of the MIDI beat clock. Selecting external UDP clock sets the PDI Media application name timeout as the source of timing information. If you select this item, you must be running the timeout application, and have enabled and specified the appropriate UDP ports in timeout and in your computer network settings. Note that clock and timing parameters can be further specified and controlled in the clock section of the main application screen. The wall VSTI menu contains 3 items that allow you to use a VST instrument as a MIDI-controlled sound source in the application. Selecting Load Instrument opens a file system dialog window. Navigate to the VST DLL or audio units file and select it. Selecting the Edit Instrument item opens the user interface for the loaded VST instrument. Select the Close Edit window item to dismiss the VST instrument user interface window. Note that your selected audio device must be turned on, and the VST on/off button must be set to on. You must also turn the VST instrument on for each voice you want to use it with. The overall volume of the loaded instrument can be controlled in the VST section of the main application window. Use the View menu to zoom in and zoom out of the application. You can also use the zoom functionality in the application main screen to change the screen size. The Pitch Quantize menu items allow you to load, export, and view the pitch maps and scales that are used in the application Pitch Quantize functionality. The text files that contain the pitch mapping data are created in the PDI Media Mercator application. They can be used with any PDI Media application that uses the Pitch Quantize functionality. The scale map file data is used to populate the scale select menus and to provide the mapping data for the application voices. The currently loaded scale maps are included automatically with the project data in the project folder when the project is saved. You can load a pitch map file in two ways. You can replace an existing scale file by selecting the Open Scale File Replace item, or you can add the data from the selected file to the current scale file data. By selecting the Open Scale File Merge item. If you select the Merge option, scale maps that are already loaded will be duplicated, so you may see scale names appear more than once in the Scale Select menus. Selecting the View Scales option opens a text window that displays the currently loaded scale maps. Selecting the Export Scales item opens a Save File dialog that allows you to save the scale maps to a separate text file that can be used in other projects or applications, including the Mercator application. This concludes our top menu tutorial. Please subscribe to this channel to view more wall tutorials and demonstrations, as well as tutorials for other PDI Media applications.
Hi everybody, I'm Alan Dudek, the developer of PDI Media software. Thanks for watching our video. I hope you find our products interesting and musically useful. You can download our applications on Gumroad. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for updates on this application and for video demonstrations of our other software products. You can also visit us on Facebook at the PDI Media Software Users Group, or if you have any questions or comments, just email directly at adudek@columbus.rr.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from some of you very soon.